Szanowni Państwo,
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. It's 11 o'clock, so we're starting today's presentation of the Management Board of KŁTY Group to discuss the projections for 2026. Let me just remind you that yesterday the company published a communication including the assumptions for the projections for the group of companies. And these are the assumptions that the management board would like to discuss. The presentation will be started by Roman Przybylski, the CEO, and then the financial projections and assumptions will be discussed by Mr. Rafał Warpechowski, CFO, and then we'll have a session of questions and answers. Please feel free to ask these questions via chat. And now let's move on to the presentation, please. President, the floor is yours. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our next conference, summarizing Q4. It's like preliminary summary of Q4 2025 and of the entire year 2025, and discussing our plans and assumptions for 2026. I am very happy, even more so, as you can see, 2025, we're closing this year in a very good situation according to our projections and according to our planned budgets and strategies, even above it. So I think in this environment we have, which is not spectacularly improving, the situation on the market is quite difficult still, and EBITDA plus 10% year on year is something we're happy to see, and it's a basis for improvement for the consecutive year, and it's reflected in the budget for 2026. As you can see, we have an increase in the volume of sales, huge level of capacity use. It's different between these segments, but utilization level is quite high. Now, in the FPS, we have some progress. We've paid out a dividend. We are starting CŁTAS, and CELT is a separate legal entity. It stopped existing and it became part of Aluprof. So the integration processes are ongoing. It's been a satisfying year with good results, and these give us the appetite for the next year, though we're hoping that the market situation will start supporting us even more. Our assumptions for the operational and broader perspective is that we are strongly exposed to the construction and interior fittings segments. It's all obviously increased by the acquisition of CELT and the system of architectural systems and shielding systems. This segment, I hope, will be subject to more and more revival due to decreasing interest rates and due to macroeconomic trends that we see, and also energy efficiency, modernization activities. I think we're in a very good position. Transport and automotive, as you can see, it's a segment that's not doing very well in Europe, but gladly, fortunately, our exposure here is not bad here, because it mainly refers to the premium part of the segment, more specialized solutions, more specialized products and brands. So we don't really feel this in the automotive. And household equipment, electrotechnical equipment, this is a little bit different, but as I said, there's no huge boom in the European economy. Some segments are doing better, some are doing worse, but in particular segments within them, there's also diversity. Some clients are doing better and worse. And I think with our portfolio of customers, we are doing above average on the market. As for the flexible packaging segment, the situation is quite stable. It's a sector of good stability. We have some fluctuations here, but we're hoping for some rebounds. But the fluctuations should be less here, smaller here than in other segments. As for projections of sales, we have ambitious assumptions for the budget for 2026. We would like to grow by 7% in terms of revenues due to increasing volumes, which are to be higher in ASS and EPS, a little bit less in EPS. It's difficult for flexible packaging segment to grow dynamically before we render the third production line. But in the other segments, like in aluminum segment, we assume this increase of volume on an ambitious level. I think what also translates into the from volume to translation to revenues, I think it's the petrochemicals prices. They'll be rebounding upwards, I think. And our assumption, 9% of sales increase in ASS, 4% in EPS, and international sales are growing. As for ESG, we continue what we assumed in our strategy. Our environmental and social responsibility are very important for us in a broad sense, and the trends, political trends, are of no importance to me. We believe in what we do, and we believe that the safety of our employees and our social environment where we work and where we are, how we get together with the local community, that's important for us. So we'll be implementing these assumptions. So these particular goals you see here for 2026 are just steps towards the path of our assumptions and targets for 2029. We're going on at a fast pace towards the strategy targets that we have defined. As for financial projections, I'm giving the floor to Rafał Warpechowski, the CFO. Thank you. Well, good morning. Let me say a few words about the macroeconomic environments that we took into account for the construction of this budget. As usually, it's an average, it's a means of all the projections of financial institutions. But what's also important, we are assuming a growth in the country, and GDP dynamics are growing as compared to 2025. As assumed. And in the Eurozone also, we're assuming an increase. So if half of our exposure is domestic, half is outside the country, I think this should be growing by 2.5% in these surroundings. So I think this environment where we operate, it gives us an opportunity to produce, to generate some increases, but our increases are twice or three times higher in our assumptions. So we should treat these assumptions, operational assumptions, as very ambitious. As for information on the resources, prices are increasing in foreign currency, but since Polish zloty is getting stronger, if you have a look at aluminum itself, prices of aluminum in Polish zlotys will be 4% higher, which will be obviously generated. So there'll be an increase due to this drop of aluminum prices by 4%, and we'll be seeing it in flexible packaging segment. And obviously, our zloty is coming stronger as compared to US dollar. So we will see that as well. As for our revenues, 7% higher, mainly driven by volume. Even in the EPS segment, it could be like 9% increase in volume. And due to the price of aluminum, it's going to be 4% in amount. As compared to GDP increase on the markets where we operate, that's a good result. And EBITDA, another effect of scale, increasing the capacity also some optimization activities that we take on a current basis. The growth dynamics 9%, more than 1.1 billion of EBITDA. The base for this growth is also 3% higher than what we projected for the first year of strategy, and planned performance is a very good result. So we crossed the barrier of 1 billion zlotys that we managed to cross in 2022 for the first time. But as we know, due to one-off events that took place there. But now in this 2025, which was a year full of operational challenges, it's going to be for the first time that we exceed 1 billion of EBITDA, and it can be recurrent. Now, we've heard some pressure, market pressure. The dynamics of growth are higher. There are some arguments for the fact that there should be some revival this year in construction and in investments that can be supported by EU funding. So this is what we rely on in the improvement of the results of this segment. Now, financial costs mainly are related to interest costs. As we know, in 2015, we had a huge range of decreases of interest rates, 1.75% of interest rates. So with our lending of 1.5 billion, this is the difference that we see. So we are not assuming any significant changes on foreign exchange, because we assumed the foreign exchange rate at the same level for the entire projection for 2026. Now, tax, income tax, there should be no significant events here, and profit, net profit, as a result, should grow by 14% year on year. Now, a few words regarding costs. As I said, EBITDA is growing faster than our revenues because the costs are growing at a much slower pace. As you can see here, in terms of raw materials, this is the master of the formulas, composition, and macroeconomic operations, and our size of operation. As for energy, we should have costs very similar to this year, about 180 million, which is mainly electricity and gas in the proportion 1/3 gas, 2/3 electricity. We have a contract. We have term contracts for it, for part of it, and we are convinced we will be able to maintain this level of cost, which is a good thing for the growing costs, obviously, taking into account growing costs. Now, third-party services, an increase here, like the minimum wage, 3% plus now, a growth, and increase in wages anyway, and the scale of our operations. There's a whole range of activities. If we assumed like 3% plus 8% of volume increase for the entire group, this would be more, but we're assuming optimization activities that will allow us to reduce this growth, and employee benefits, an increase in the level of employment, which is quite small in the aluminum systems segment only, about 7% growth of employee benefits is the amount that we have for an increase in wages and the result of last year's raise in salaries, and 2% remains for increasing the level of employment with this 7% increase in revenues.
Now, regarding CapEx, here, as we signaled after the third quarter, 243 million, it is a forecast for this year, about 30 million zlotys as we inform. These are tasks assumed in this year's budget, continuation of which will be done in next year. So we may say that if we correct by 30 million zlotys, so CapExes are comparable among years, but in the segment of aluminum systems, These are tasks in the middle of the budget. Development, new products, the automation of the production, and in maintenance, it's mainly in logistics and transport tasks where with a large scale of utilization, we have necessity to reconstruct our machine depot. In case of extruded products, 100% will be recovery spending. We have production capacity. We are only doing refurbishment related to maintenance of the technology and the growing scale, whereas about half of this capex being spending on dies and the segment of flexible packaging, but we are going into phase of bigger spending regarding the third line. It will be total spending at the level of about 80 million zlotys, 97. It will be spending on the construction of third line of BOPP. Wrapping up regarding cash flow and our financial situation, very strong flow from operational activities allow us to finance the whole investment program, paying dividend, which we assume at this level that is 85% of consolidated net profit. After paying off the interest, we will reduce the debt by about 60 million zlotys. So net debt to EBITDA will fall to 1.3 level. Regarding structure of debt, we do not foresee significant changes. Roughly half of it is long-term loans. Yesterday we informed about extending the financing with the BNP Bank. It is half a billion zlotys. Deadline is it's a long-term loan. In case of currency structure, nothing changes as well. About 20% of our debt is debt in euro. And practically wrapping up with the background of a macroeconomic surrounding, which we assumed for the budget, we must admit that our volume increase in all segments is a task being quite ambitious, which is also confirmed as targets determined in the strategy. We want to grow faster than consumption of our products. We have the whole series of activities done internally, both in savings and pro-developmental, pro-product, which will allow us in our opinion, to implement these assumptions. And as we presented, our financial situation is in stability, is strong, and each and every time we highlight that dividend policy and keeping it in place is a constant element of budget already included in the forecast for this year. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation. Now let's move on to the Q&A session. Questions which our audience asked. The first question is about investment for 2026. At the former conference, the company mentioned that scale of investment may come close to about 400 million zlotys, whereas we are specifying that it will be closer to 300. Are there any projects which we reduced significantly or transferred for further years? Yes, really, we specified in September based on strategic assumptions, and that amount could be higher, especially that we were transferring, shifting, reducing this year's capex of about 100 million zlotys, but within work on the budget, we made work which reflects the current situation. We have production capacity. Our objective is to utilize them, and quite naturally the degree of wear and tear of machines is dropping a little bit when we are not utilizing them to the full. So firstly, we gave up development activities where we have this excess capacity, production capacity. Secondly, we introduced the whole series of optimization activities activities for minimizing the maintenance capex, and these are the results thereof. But no way it is a threat to continuation of operations, nor we had to limit the developmental capex. We take into account the market reality, current prices, and currency exchange rate. So this is the latest forecast, very much broken down in details into tasks, and we believe it secures us, it will allow us to implement the financial assumptions. Thank you very much. Question regarding the volume increase in EPS. How much of this is generated by internal sales within the group to ASS, to aluminum segment system? About half. Thank you. And the question regarding dynamics of EBITDA increase in the segment of aluminum systems, it is slightly lower than the sales dynamics. Where from such an assumption? Here we mentioned, as you please note, how strongly ASS results went up compared to the forecast for 2025. It was related to high margin level. Now we assume very high dynamics of further volume increase, and therefore, as a result of it, we assume very slight correction of EBITDA dynamics. Please also keep in mind that beneficiary of this weak situation in extruded product segment in 2025 was aluminum system segment, which generated so high a margin. If we assume that in 2026 situation for the segment of extruded products will get slightly better, it means it will be able to increase prices, which automatically will be translated onto slightly lower assumed increase of EBITDA in aluminum system segment. And next question regarding increase of costs. This refers to the employee benefits increase, 2% of increase in remuneration. So in the slide on breakdown of costs, the last explanation actually breaks down this 9% change into the part which is related to quantitative increase of employees and the part which is related to the increase in the fund as such. So this has been addressed at. And what is the current situation of automotive in extruded segment systems? Are there symptoms of improvement, and how much of the production of EPS is addressed at ASS, it is related to SWW. At what level of utilization of capacity EPS worked in the fourth quarter, and what is the average capacity assumed for 2025, and how will this situation look like in 2026? Honorable ladies and gentlemen, there are a few questions in one, but trying in turn, maybe not in the sequence of asking the question regarding fulfilling the utilization of capacity in EPS. So this year, in the recent period, in the recent months, it is staying slightly below 80%. With these assumptions of volume increase we are talking about, next year it should be high 80+%. It is difficult to define it precisely because it depends on product mix and then distribution of those orders onto press. So I'm talking generally, but these are these levels. And regarding automotive, then our exposition to automotive is slight. It is for sure an interesting segment for the future for us, because automotive is consuming a lot of aluminum. However, today it is not significant for us today. It is slightly more significant in a part of our activities, which is the Slovenian company, but this is a small component of all our revenue. Well, there was some question. Yes. How many profiles from extruded segments goes to aluminum systems? Roughly 1/3. Here I'm recalling the slide which President Przybylski mentioned, so share of transport and automotive within the whole group here. Please keep in mind that automotive is actually combined with transport, so pure automotive may be half of it, because transport are actually trailers and so on, elements for public transport, like elements of railway carriages and products. So actually exposition to pure automotive, which is actually sensitive to these problems, is really small. Next question. A question regarding estimation for the fourth quarter, which we also specified yesterday. It is related to small dynamics of sales in aluminum systems in the fourth quarter. Is this a result of some worsening of a seasonal trend, or other elements which might be explaining this only 4% increase in aluminum systems? Fourth quarter 2025 compared to same time in 2024. Well, ladies and gentlemen, many factors influence it. There is not one dominating factor, including the fact that when you look at the calendar and when you actually set up a number of working days, say in December, so end of the year is weak, but generally market-wise we have great variability, and from moments of slight arisal, then a moment of stopping comes. Everybody look at geopolitics, and everybody look at CBAM, which is to be introduced next year. So we don't see any disturbing tendencies for sure here. Thank you very much. Whether in estimation for 2025 and forecast for 2025 were significant tax components, assets assumed in estimation for 2025. We assumed two things. On the one hand, we recognized 16 million of tax assets related to ending in investment in FPS. Let me remind you, two printing line with adjacent equipment. It was 16 million. And on the other hand, we also assumed the first estimation of updating the put-off tax in the EPS segment. It is about 20 million zlotys, where at the moment we estimate that after this slowdown, practically of 3 years, tax asset to be possibly regained will be about 65, not 83 million. So net result of these two estimations is about minus 4 million zlotys, and this is the influence on tax rate in the fourth quarter 2025. Therefore, in the scale of the whole year, it is slightly higher. It is 20%. Whereas in 2026, this type is not assumed. Yes, regulations have changed. The first moment when we recognize, as of today, based on the investment program we have now, for the first time, the asset recognized in 2028 or end of 2027, depending on when we end the third line in FPS.
Could the management board share the distribution of EBITDA between the first and second quarter of 2026? Will it be similar as in the previous years? Do we assume that the second half of the year is going to be this better half, Or are we assuming like 50-50 distribution? We're assuming more or less 50-50 distribution. The second half is not prevailing. Yeah. And the improvement of the situation in the EPS, will it be visible from Q1 2026 already? Or rather, will it be more visible in the second half of the year? Well, actually, the beginning of the year, as in every segment, because the economic assumptions are a little bit different in each of them. So Q1 is like a transition period between Q4 and Q1, and most of the actions take place in Q2, Q3. So as a standard procedure, we're planning an even year, but the second half is burdened by the fact that December is shorter usually because our operational activities are finished as with our customers a little bit earlier before the end of December. We have some overhaul and maintenance works, but so it may be a little bit like that, but Q1 might be a little bit weaker as we assume. Now in 2026, are you planning to present separate results for the sun protection system segment? We're working on it, and our assumption for now is that after the integration of Celta, we'll be ready to fill all the premises to separate this segment. And I think for reporting, it could be done for Q1 already, if it works like that. What operations or activities regarding acquisition will the company take in 2026? And will these activities involve any costs that are recognized in this projection? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're implementing what we put in our strategy in this respect. So organizational changes that we carry out in our group. So strengthening our position on international markets, centralization of some support functions, integration of Zelt with Aluprof. These are all the activities that are to bring us closer to be more ready, better prepared for the integration of these companies. As we said, we are looking at what's going on the market, and we want to be active. We want to enter the market actively more when we are better prepared and when we have a very well-prepared acquisition strategy in place. We're working on it. It does not mean that we'll generate any extra costs. We're not planning any extra costs. We have our own structures that we rely on. If any project moves on to a further stage, there might be some costs appearing, but it will depend on the advance of certain particular talks, discussions, and situations. Thank you very much. Now, another question regarding the development of the sun protection system segment. Are you planning on expanding your operations outside Europe, like Africa or Asia? We approach every segment in a similar way in this respect. So we think that the most area for us for growth is in European countries due to their closeness in geographical and cultural and economic terms, which does not mean we're not trying elsewhere, specifically in the sun protection system segment. It's a very good question, a justified one, because we try to take activities to even this seasonal nature of the segment, which is the biggest in this segment. So we're looking for other locations, maybe not Asia, but we're looking into South America and also Persian Bay Area. But our ambition of growth mainly covers the strategic markets, mainly Europe. And Yeah, like Central and Western Europe mainly. What's the influence of the latest decisions of the competition on closing down several plants producing extruded products? How can they impact this distribution of powers on the market in Europe in a short and medium term? Well, if there's some excess of surplus of capacity on the market, information on the reduction of capacities is a good piece of information because the surplus of capacity will decrease, so it's good news. But companies that take such steps, they close less effective, less efficient capacities, and they focus on more efficient ones. So it's healthy competition. Everybody tries to operate in a more effective way. So the market should be healthier due to that. Now, a request that you refer to the situation, address or describe maybe the current situation in our Ukrainian companies. Now, if potential peace talks finalize with success, can it have impact on the business? How can it impact it? What's the situation of our assets there as compared to Turkish competition that will definitely be very active on that market? Well, the situation in Ukraine of both our companies, because we operate in Ukraine in the ASS segment and in the EPS segment. So both companies are stable, they are operational, obviously in some restricted way, but they generate enough profit to cover their costs. We don't see any events coming to change it. We all hope for good outcome of peace talks and recovery, reconstruction of Ukraine, but we're not going to speculate on when it's going to happen. If there is durable, sustainable peace, the economic situation will definitely favor our businesses. Obviously, competition from other countries will also try and benefit from it, but it's not a surprise. It's not a huge challenge because we have this competition from other countries on every market where we are present. In Ukraine, it's going to be important that we have local assets, we produce locally, it should be important, and the fact that we're a Polish company, we're close to them geographically and culturally, and obviously the war situation obviously put us closer to Ukraine, so we're quite optimistic as for our growth in Ukraine in peace situation, but I don't want to speculate about when it's going to happen, obviously. Thank you very much. Now, what about the planned CBAM in 2026? Will it significantly affect the operational activities? Has it been included in the projections? We're not assuming for now any significant impact of CBAM. The market has prepared for it and discounted it for a long time now. That's one aspect. And also CBAM that is being introduced is already being corrected and it's going to be adjusted and expanded. So it's difficult to speculate how fast and to what extent it's going to be done. So it's quite natural that we assume CBAM as it is now. Okay. Could you comment on flexible packaging segment? Estimated EBITDA for Q4 2025, it's higher year-on-year, and the company mentioned the pressure on margin in this segment. Where do we have this improvement of profitability in the flexible packaging segment in Q4 year-on-year? Q4 25 to Q4 24. Our FPS company is very efficient and they implement on a current basis all optimization activities. That's one thing. And it also works at a very high level of usage of their capacity. And also in Q4 last year, we had an update of our reserves regarding customs cases. So this was a little bit lower last year, but this year I would say that the growing capacity usage and effective cost policy, these are main factors that contribute to such a good result and increase. And I think this is the last question that I can see here that has not been answered. Now, the aluminum systems segment or extruded product segment, are they significantly exposed in any way to companies who announced some financial problems in the last few months or are trying to reorganize their enterprise? Well, in general, I think it's about our exposure. Well, I'm not mentioning any names. I can tell you that we are insured. We have good coverage, and the policy of granting trade loans to our customers is very specific, so we do not lead to a situation where we could have some uncovered exposure. So there are no balances that are exposed, and that would be on a large scale, significant scale. And the last question, what is the assumed operational inflow for 2025? I don't know if we can give a detailed piece of information, but I'll try and answer directly to the author. I will send the answer to the person who asked it. And I think, there's one more question. Opportunities and risks regarding the projection for 2026. What possible opportunities do we see for some positive surprises? And what are the potential risks that could lead to a situation that the company does not meet the assumptions of the projections? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that the answer to such a question would be macro situation. If there's revival, if something happens next year so that the impulse, economic impulse on our main markets is more significant, then it will obviously help us. Also, when something negative on a macro scale happens, like a very slow economic growth, if it's reduced, if the pace is even slower, it will have a negative impact on it. We have good diversification between sectors. We have good diversification between particular segments of our products, like in construction, but we're also in other sectors that are more like FMCG. So we hedge between businesses. What can help us is macro, and that's our wish for you and all of us for Christmas, but it can have a negative effect as well. But after the last years, it's hard to imagine that the situation could be even worse than what we experienced in the last few years. I hope it was the last question, and I hope that we have not overlooked any of the questions. So we will finish at this. This is the end of the Q&A session. If there's any question that has not been answered, you can write to me. I will answer it directly. Thank you very much for this meeting and for the presentation. And the CEO would like to say a few words.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, due to the date, it is quite natural to summarize this year, not only business-wise. We would like to thank you very much for being with us this year and take the opportunity to wish you good, healthy and peaceful Christmas, and wishing you all the best in the next year. We wish you to be in that year together with us and to be part of our success and results of our work, and so that we will be able to further on be meeting at conferences like this one in next year and further years. And for this week, first of all, time with your family, good and healthy Christmas, and thank you very much.